Hey everyone, what is up, and welcome back to another episode of Wintuition. I'm CJ.
And I'm Alex.
And we are bringing you a Bloomburrow cEDH set review. We have about 10 cards that we've chosen that I think we're going to see play in the format, whether it be just testing or actually going to be staples in certain decks, as well as a few honorable mentions. And we will be explaining one of the new mechanics from the set from one of the cards that we've selected on our list. So stay tuned for that. But let's get right into the set review. So Alex, start us off with this honorable mention. We're going to start with the honorable mentions first, and here is the first one.
So the first one is Dowport Mage, which reads, whenever one or more other creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, draw a card. And for 1 and a blue, tap, return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. So on a 2-drop for 1 and a blue, 1/3, that's pretty good. So that being on board with Baron Master Wizard and Dockside or a Cloudstone Curio combo, it lets you also draw your deck as you're going through the loop, generating your treasures. Now, at some point, you will have to get this off the battlefield because it will be a forced draw. So you need it off so that you don't deck yourself. Another utility piece on this is that second ability of returning another target creature, so that you can use that to protect something from any kind of exile removal or something of the sort.
Yeah, I mean it's an honorable mention. It's not gas because, you know, if you're already making infinite mana, you're probably winning because your commander has an infinite sync outlet of some kind, like a Thrasio or something like that. But still a decent card.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it fits in any decks at the moment, but it may see some testing. That's my hot take on it. I think it's just going to see testing.
Yeah. Especially in some of your lower color lists, like a Jeskai or a Teamer or something like that.
Yeah. And now I just want to take this moment to thank our sponsor of the video, TOA, or TOA Magic as they're known across the MTG community. They're the purple booth at SCG cons and Magic cons across the US. So thank you, TOA or TOA. We appreciate your support. And if you would like to help support this channel as well and enjoy the content that we put out and are looking for singles or sealed product, you can go to toamagic.com and use our affiliate code at checkout, Wintuition, to save some money on some Magic cards that you're looking for. At TOA, they have over 77,000 SKUs and ship all in one package straight to you and offer free track shipping on all orders. So make sure you guys check them out. The link is down in the bio below. So moving on to our next honorable mention, we have Seasons of Weaving. It is a 6-cost, 4 colorless, 2 blue sorcery that says choose up to 5 paws worth of modes. You may choose the same mode more than once. So for 1 paw, you can draw a card. 2 paws, you can choose an artifact or creature you control and create a token that's a copy of it. And then for 3 paws, you can return each non-land, non-token permanent to its owner's hand. So at face value, for those of you who haven't seen any of our gameplay videos, this is an excellent card in a Mizzix build or a Wheeliod build that reduces the cost of your instants and sorcery spells. And in a Wheeliod deck, it gives flash to this card, or, you know, makes it an instant, so it's even better because you're able to just have so much more versatility with this card. So at base level, you can draw 5 cards. Going a step above that, you can draw 3 and make a token. You can draw 1 and make 2 tokens, or you can draw 2, return the board, reset everything. Now, I don't foresee the board wipe being used in a lot of situations, but one thing to note is the token that you make will not return off the field. It won't go away with the board wipe because it does say non-token, non-land. So pretty decent. Again, definitely going to be a staple in those decks, but I think outside of that, it's not going to really see play because of that high CMC. So.
And another thing that's worth noting is that whenever you're talking about cards like this where you're choosing modes and you get to pick multiple, they do resolve normally at the top going down. So you get to create the copy first, and then things will get bounced off the board after.
Yes. So if you have a dockside on our side of the field, you can get the dockside ETB and then get all your treasures, and then they'll still be there, and then the wrath will happen, or the return to hand. So pretty versatile. So moving on to our next honorable mention.
So this is Osteomancer Adept. The main utility on this creature is just that you get to cast something from your graveyard by foraging. There's not a ton of uses for it, but the main thing is sometimes you just need that one more dockside ETB to be able to go off, or you need to bring that Grand Abolisher back into play or something like that, just to kind of seal up a win. Maybe a little bit of utility in some of your breach decks just to kind of finish it off if you don't have a breach in play, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a decent card for a 1 generic and a black. It's a 2/2 with Death Touch. Squirrels are definitely becoming more prevalent with this set, and they'll probably be more prevalent as the sets continue. But the biggest thing, I think the biggest drawback with this card is when you cast the creature, it comes back with a finality counter on it, which means it gets exiled if it gets removed. So you don't get to loop things like you would with a breach or something along those lines. So it is sad in that aspect. So it just doesn't make the cut for the list. So, but all right, let's move on to the good cards. The top 10 cEDH cards that we think are going to see play in the format. So starting off, this is one of the cards I chose. I think this is a really sick card. The art is great. Dewdrop Cure. It is a 2 and a white sorcery gift a card. Now this is a new mechanic. I will let you know when I saw gift a card, I thought it was, the most wonky mechanic that there is, especially for cEDH. Like, why do you want to play these in cEDH? This one's not terrible because it said gift a card, you may promise an opponent a gift as you cast a spell. So what it means by that is you're giving them a card, you're giving them a draw. If you do, they draw a card before its other effects of this card resolve. So at base value, for 3 mana, it is a baby Savine's Wreck for creatures 2 or less. So you get to return up to 2 target creature cards, each with mana value 2 or less, from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then, if you did gift a card to your opponent, you get a 3rd one to the battlefield. So for me, this is really strong, even though you're giving your opponent a card, because there are a lot of solid 2-drops you could hit with this. So just to give you an example, Bowmaster, Dockside, Thoracle, your clones like Thimage or a Flesh Duplicate. You have Lotho, a Destiny Spinner, or an Allosaurus Shepherd to make your creatures uncounterable. You have Esper Sentinel, a Drannith, a Kinnan, a Bloom Tender, an Abolisher, like being the best one. Mm-hmm. So you get any combination of those two. So, I think this card is great in a Kenrith deck. Sisay, probably borderline, because again, you're trying to get creatures out of the deck, but still pretty versatile because you could bring back a Dockside and a Kinnan if it is late in the game. I'm not saying it belongs in that deck, but has some versatility. Maybe in a Mardu build, if you're on a stack strategy, you can return a Dockside and a Drannith, or a Dockside and an Abolisher, or just 2 stack pieces, Drannith and Abolisher. Mm-hmm. Very versatile in that sense, but I think overall a great card.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add other than for gift a card, you would promise the card when you are casting it, but they don't get the card until it resolves. So that card won't be able to interact with this until after.
So, I like this card. I think it's going to see play, but that's just my opinion. That was the only white card we had, though. So, not many hot white cards, I feel like, in this set, but that's okay. Not every card is going to be a cEDH staple. Moving on to Poliwrath Prodigy.
So this is a 1 and a blue for a Frog Wizard 1/3 with Evolve, and whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell with mana value less than Poliwrath Prodigy's power, draw a card. So this is another easy to cast early draw engine. If you're able to get this out on turn 1, then anyone casting their 0-drop artifacts is going to trigger it, so you get to keep drawing cards. It doesn't die to a Bowmaster because that 3 toughness, and it keeps naturally getting bigger. So especially in decks like a Kenrith, where you can pump it as the game draws on a little bit longer, then it makes it so even more things are going to keep triggering it. You get to keep drawing more cards. Yeah, it's just an easy to cast thing that's not going to go away.
Like once this gets to just 3 power, you're pretty much gas. So you're going to be drawing any non-creature spell. The only non-creature spells you might not hit are like a Force of Will, a Mindbreak Trap, appeared into the abyss. But like at that point, so those cards are 4 out of, let's say you're playing against 3 other blue decks, like so, but you're gonna just be gaining so much card advantage off this card, and it's a beater. So like, I feel like even blue farm players would want to play this because you go this on turn 1, maybe even turn 2 into a Timna, then it evolves again, and when you play Crom, so you have a nice 3/5 beater that's going to keep drawing you more cards.
Yeah, hard to get off the board.
Yeah, like it's just solid.
And with it being a creature, it's harder to interact with on the stack.
Yeah.
There's only a couple of counter spells that are going to hit it.
And I don't think people are going to counter this just because of what it is.
Yeah.
So, good card. Gonna see play. Moving on to Storm Splitter. Now, this card is gas. Otters, you don't want to mess with them. They may look cute, but they're really harmful to you. So, Storm Splitter is a 4-cost, 3 generic, and a red Otter Wizard. It has haste, and it says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a token that's a copy of Storm Splitter. Exile that token at the beginning of the next end step, and it is a 1/4. So it's got a big booty. You ain't removing it unless you have a Path or a Swords. So no form of like Bolt or something like that's going to be hitting it. And I think this is straight gas because if you cast 8 spells, now granted that's a lot, but if you're playing Storm, you're already going to be doing that. Most likely, your Storm count's going to be high. You get 256 copies of that little thing.
Yeah.
You're dead on board if that happens. You better have just casted a 1 ring and got protection for the turn because you dying. So, I think this is very viable in a Krark Sakashima build because it's already running all of the kind of double triggers like the Varen Voice of Duality and the Harmonic Prodigy that doubles Krark triggers, so you'll be able to get double triggers because this is also a wizard. So you'll actually only have to cast 4 spells if those are already out. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it's a great game finisher, especially because, sometimes Krarks have the problem of getting there with just casting those spells. But if you have this on the board and then try to go off, this is your failsafe.
Yeah, and it's also a potential win con in something like a Burgi. Where you're trying to just keep storming off and keep going through those cantrips to get through the deck. It's not that hard to cast 8 spells in a single turn in a Burgi deck.
Yeah. Hear me out. You're an Atali player.
Mm-hmm.
Atali, when he goes off, is probably casting several spells because you have the clones, and then you're casting other spells from your opponents. You're usually hitting a couple non-creature spells. Mm-hmm. Would you include that in an Atali list?
I don't think that I would, just because it's the instants and sorceries only. It's not any non-creature.
Sure.
And most of what I want to be doing is just copying the Atali infinitely.
Sure.
So I don't think it's quite there, but it definitely is something that's worth considering in anything where you're going to be doing a lot of spell slinging, because a large portion of that deck is built around the sorceries, like your Molten Duplication, your Twin Flame, your Heat Shimmer, all of those types of effects. So like it's worth talking about, but I don't think that it would end up making that kind of a list.
I was just curious. I mean, I definitely think it's cool. I mean, has potential. So I think this card's definitely going to see play. I mean, it is an all-star. I think it gives Burgi some legs for sure. If you see this card, I definitely think it's a remove on site because they're going to probably go for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Storm Splitter. Watch out. He's coming. Moving on to...
So this is Bloodroot Apothecary. For 2 and a green, you get a Squirrel Druid 3/3 with Toxic 2, and when it enters the battlefield, you and target opponent each create a treasure token. And whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-creature token, that player gets 2 poison counters. So the short version of this is that yes, you're giving someone a treasure, but it's also treasure hate, which treasures are a huge part of the format right now, especially because of cards like Dockside.
Yeah.
So anything that hates on those is worth at least talking about. And you're in green, so you get all of those straight to battlefield tutors like a Court of Calling. So at instant speed, after someone has cast their Dockside with the ETB on the stack, then you can use that Court of Calling, get this into play, and now they only get to crack a couple of treasures, and if they don't find an answer fast, then that stops them on the spot.
Yeah, I definitely think this slowly kind of gives green some legs. I know green has been kind of the weaker color in the color pie for cEDH for a while. Not the strongest, if you will. Kind of like on the back burner. And I think like this is another good stacks piece for, let's say, Timnatana, things along that line. I will say that, you know, you don't see a lot of lists playing Collect Roof anymore, but, you know, they may play this over that because treasure utilization and creation is just something that a lot of decks are using right now.
Yeah, because the drawback with a card like a Collector Oof is that it lowers your own card quality, because you can't use things like the One Ring to your advantage. But with something like a Bloodroot Apothecary, you still get the utility of hating on treasures that something like a Collector Oof would be able to give you, with it being asymmetrical, only impacting your opponents, and it doesn't impact the card quality of your own deck.
Correct, yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely a solid card. I am not particularly a green player in cEDH, but I definitely think that there are decks that are going to want to utilize this card in some way.
Yeah, especially like Bant Stacks decks.
Yeah. So, moving on to a card that's been talked about quite a bit. I know Comedian is really hyped about this card. Lily Spash Mentor. It is a 4-cost, 2 generic, a green and a blue, Frog Druid with Reach, and it has an activated ability of 1 generic, green and a blue. Exile another target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a 1/1 counter on it. Activate only as a sorcery, and it is a 4/4. So, again, it does infinite docksides. It's great. It is a creature ability just like Emil, so this also opens up your colors into green-blue versus green-white. So a lot of decks are going to be able to utilize this card since they couldn't use Emil. I think it is a better Teamer Sabertooth for sure, because you do not have to recast the dock side and then potentially get a Mindbreak trap off of it. I personally, again, don't play a lot of green, but I know that there are some other cards that, you know, may utilize this activated ability.
Because you can also just use it to get any of your ETBs over again. So if you're in that more Bant sphere that we were just talking about, then you can use it for your Skyclave apparitions, to use it as repeated removal, not just as a repeatable dockside sort of thing when you're in like the Teamer shell.
Oh, you also could reset a Flush duplicate with its vanishing counters. If it's like on its last counter, you can reset it before it goes away. So there is some versatility in that as well. But we're not going to talk about too much about this card because, again, I think this is going to be the one that's talked about on every cEDH channel, and I think we're just going to keep moving. All right. Our only Planeswalker that we're going to talk about.
So another Otter. This one's Ral, Crackling Wit for 2, and then is it. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on Ral. For a +1, you create a 1/1 blue and red Otter creature token with prowess. For a -3, you draw 3 cards, then discard 2. And then -10, draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with instant and sorcery spells you cast have Storm. So it does start at 4 loyalty, which is a little bit lower than you might want, but it does mean that the floor of this card is, I just need a little bit more gas in my hand. I can -3, draw 3 cards, discard 2. But if you're in more of a storm-based strategy, like a Krark Sakashima or something like that, then you cast this on like a setup turn, going into your next, where you're going to start going off using those instants and sorceries to get it up to 10 pretty quickly, because that's only 6 spells. Then you -10 so that you draw those cards, and then everything is now Storm. That's a lot. Everything having Storm means that you're probably winning shortly.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, and I'm just being honest with you, I don't think this card is super good. I think it may see testing but then just drop off because it requires setup. Like you said, you're going to play it on your turn and then it has to go a whole turn cycle without it being attacked. And I think that's not going to happen, knowing that if you're on like a Krark Sakashima deck, you are going to be the target, because if this does land and get to 10, it's GG's most likely in some cases. It's just, it requires a lot of setup because realistically, you need 4 mana plus additional 6 spells to be able to ult it. So, you know, in hindsight, yes, a Krark Sakashima player can go Crackling Wit, cast a Jessica's Will, and then start looping the Jessica's Will and getting value there. Sure. But that means they have to win their flips though. So like there is some drawback. So yes, I think it's possible you can land this into a Jessica's Will and then go crazy, because then you'll be able to reach your 10 Storm, and then, or your 10, to reach your 10 Loyalty, and then crack it, or pop it, and then get that emblem, and then you're refueling your hand with a couple more cards, and then you get the emblem for everything as Storm, and then that's just insane. But I don't know. That's the hard part. I feel like I think card quality for Karakushima is, even though it's in 2 colors, is very high and very specific.
Yeah, and even if you are in that situation that you just outlined of like a Jessica's Will, if Karakushima's got a Jessica's Will, then they're probably winning regardless.
Yeah, so it's just, this is definitely probably a wins more. But again, it also could be like that Otter, the other Otter, where it's like, this could be potentially, if you do whiff, and you have something else in your hand, like let's just say a Get Probe. Yes, you're going to probably be taking a bunch of life, but like that could get you there. I don't know. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where the Otters fall. So moving on, we have the infamous Cruel Claw. This is a 3-drop, 1 generic, black and a red, legendary creature, Weasel Mercenary. You gotta watch out for those weasels. They're infamous. It has Menace. Whenever the infamous Cruel Claw deals combat damage to a player, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card by discarding a card rather than paying its mana cost. In-frickin-sane. Yeah. Like, this is a cEDH commander through and through. Because for discarding a card, you could cast a Peer into the Abyss. You could cast Vilas, Broker of Blood. Vilas. Tomato. It's all the same to me. Like, there's just so much potential here. You have access to all the black tutors, which can put it on top so you're not burning through your deck. And then you just discard a card. And it also even lends itself for, like, if you're not on the go fast turbo strategy, you could go for the reanimation, because the cost of casting that card is discarding a card. So let's say you put a reanimation spell on top and you discarded your Vilas, Broker of Blood, and you recurred that, and now you have an 8/8 beater. Like, it's just a really sick card. A really sick commander. And it has Menace, which means, it's getting through in the early game. So I just can't have enough to say about it. Like, there's just so much you can do with this, because you can go turbo, you can go reanimator. You just have so much value that you are able to achieve. Even running a Bolus' Citadel, that top deck multiplication. And that doesn't even include, like, just, you obviously could do other things. Like, it's just so open. Because it's discard a card, place a non-land for free. Like, there's just so many. You could put an Eldrazi on top.
Yeah.
And just start going big. You're not losing the life, you're just discarding a card.
And it is still a cast.
It is a cast.
You still get the Eldrazi cast triggers.
Yeah, like, it's crazy. Like, power creep. It's the weasels. They're up to no good. All right. I think that's enough said. I mean, this card you're going to see. I mean, granted, it's not as broken as Nadu, but it's close.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. It provides another option in Rakdos.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, it was really just to Prosper and
or
that was everything. Yeah. It took a whole, 2 years between the 2 cards to get a second commander that was viable. And then we recently got Rakdos. Now we have this. So there's more options to work with in the Rakdos space.
Yeah. I mean, we also had from Throne or Wild's Veldrain, we had the Sign of War.
Yeah.
Rowan. Really good, cool turbo strategy as well. So it's nice to see that this doesn't have to be turbo strategy. It's just value. So much.
Yeah, because they are all Rakdos decks, but they don't want to be doing the same thing.
Correct. Yeah. All right. Moving on to, I think, one of your favorite cards from the set. I'll let you introduce him.
So this is Mr. Foxglove for 2.
For the record, not wearing gloves. Just saying. Disappointed.
So for 2 in Bant, you get a Fox Rogue that's a 3/5 with lifelink. And whenever it attacks, draw cards equal to the number of cards in defending player's hand minus the number of cards in your hand. If you didn't draw cards this way, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So if you're low on cards in hand for whatever reason, so 1, 2, 3 cards, you would swing at the player who's been having their Mystic Remora or Rhystic Study go off, and you get to draw up to 7, 8, 9 cards into your hand. So it's refilling it. And then if you are swinging at somebody who doesn't have more cards than you, you just get to put some kind of a big creature into play. So if you're in Bant, you're probably in more of like a Staxy kind of build. So you get to put a Void Winnower into play, an Elish Norn into play, any of the other Praetors, a Consecrated Sphinx, anything that can either slow your opponents down to a halt or to refill you back up and break parity on those abilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool design space. I mean, Bant stacks, very strong. You get the refill on the hand if you need it. And especially if someone plays a turn 1 early Mystic Remora, they have 10 cards in hand, and you just want to be able to match them. That way, you know, you have the ability to stop them if they try to go off on their following turn. It's nice.
Yeah, and it's just an attack trigger, so he doesn't even need to deal any damage.
Correct.
And with this all happening on attack, that Elish Norn that you can put into play now buffs the Mr. Foxglove to a 5/7 off the rip and kills any potential blockers. You now get to go through. It just does a lot before combat damage even happens.
And you can even run the other mom that stops ETB effects. So, you know, Docksides are shut off, Thoracles. So since you're on that stacks route, if someone's trying to go more of a turbo strategy, you can really cut them off at the knee.
Yeah.
So good card. I think, again, this is going to see testing. I think you're going to see people be brewing it. I think it's a great cEDH commander, viable commander, just like that dang weasel we're going to be seeing. But you know what? There's one other cEDH viable commander, and this is my personal favorite card from the set. I'm definitely going to be brewing it. I'm going to dabble in green, guys. I'm going to dabble in green. It is Garb Calamity's Augur, a frog wizard noble for 3 mana, a black, a green, and a blue. And it has Death Touch, and it has the ability, you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play land cards and cast spells with mana value 4 or greater from the top of your library, and has an activate ability of tap, surveil 2, and is a 2/4 body. So really quick, I just want to say there has been an opportunity missed here, right? This is, I mean, it's a frog version of Tasigur. The pose, it's all there. But imagine if Wizards was like, you know what? 4 or greater, let's go 3 or less. That would be, I'd be as broken as Nadu.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be, I mean, it would be awesome. We could live the dream. But it is 4 or greater, so this card, I mean, the art, let's take a minute to look at that art. He's sitting on a lily pad throne, just minding his own business, raining down on the amphibians. But a lot of cool things you can do with this. So the notable things that you can cast off the top for free: Mindbreak Trap, Force of Will. You still have to pay the alternate cost of discarding a card. And yes, it's probably raining, so you can probably hear the rain, but that's okay. There's a lot of things you can do with this. There are some Hermit Druid lines, you know, the ability to surveil. It gives your counter, if you play Counterbalance, it gives you fuel to keep the Counterbalance alive and keep it, you know, off a certain number, which is really sweet. So there's a lot of brewing space that could be done with this commander, for sure. Even though it does have that restriction of 4 or greater, there is, again, I think a lot of free spells you can hit with this, or that things have an alternative casting cost. You have all of the elementals like Grief, granted not the best, but Subtlety, Deadly Rollick, those types of things. Beseech the Mirror, again, you'd have to cast it, but again, you can actually cast it off the top. I think in this type of a deck, Bolas' Citadel, Aetherflux Reservoir, and Top probably belong in this list. Again, not the strongest win condition in cEDH, but you do also have access to, again, Hermit Druid lines, Thoracle, because you're in blue-black. Maybe even a Francisco Ballista line here, since you are surveilling, so you can fill the yard to do that. But yeah, I think there's a lot of brewing that can be done around this as well.
Yeah, and another thing that's notable is, even though I don't think it's the best strategy to be doing, if you're in this, you can do your Witherbloom Apprentice Chain of Smog line.
Yeah.
And the downside is that you have to get rid of all the cards that are in your hand. But the upside with Garb being in play is that if you do have any kind of interaction on the top, like a Mindbreak Trap, then you still have some kind of a protection for your combo as you're going through it.
True.
Since everyone waits until you don't have anything in hand, but that makes it so you still got that one card that you can access.
Yeah. And it probably would have to be the Mindbreak Trap, because everything else you'd have to be able to discard too. Or
yeah, which it is also nice being in black, and notably black and blue here, so that you can Mystical Tutor to put the Mindbreak Trap on top. If this interaction does come up, you can set up beforehand with that, or just generally with the black tutors like the Imp Seal and the Vamp Tutor that we were talking about earlier, then you get to keep sculpting that top of your library between those top deck tutors, any kind of top deck manipulation, like with a top, and that Surveil ability at the bottom.
Yeah. I think overall a great commander. I think, again, another commander you're going to be seeing being played. I think we'll be doing a Bloomburrow gameplay video, and I think you're going to be seeing definitely these 3 commanders in the episode. Not sure what that 4th one's going to be, but it is going to be a good game for sure. A lot of cool design space for brewing, and I'm excited about this set. You know, this set has been really hyped up by the community. Again, the art's good. I think I haven't read any of the lore, but I've heard the lore is very solid.
Yeah, I'm not super versed on the lore. I know a little bit, like how Garb is his moistness.
Yes.
But I'm not too deep in lore most of the time. I usually end up reading it like a year or 2 after the fact.
Fair enough, fair enough.
But yeah, really cool set. Outside of cEDH, it printed one card that I'm very interested in for casual, because it just does all the stuff I want to do. It's the Arthur Mouse Jeskai. It's the colors I want to be playing.
Okay.
You get to flip random stuff off the top.
That's
I play
cool.
Atali. I play Atraxa. I play Winota. I like flipping stuff off top.
That's fair. Everyone likes a good flip, a blind flip at that. So, well, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Please let us know in the comments below if there was a card that you think deserved to be on our top 10 list, or even an honorable mention from this set. We'd love to hear from it. And again, thank you guys for watching. If you please support this video by liking and subscribing, it really does help our channel. We really appreciate the support. It means we're doing something right as a channel, and that is the best satisfaction that we can get as content creators. But we'll see you next time on Wintuition. I'm CJ.
And I'm Alex.
We'll catch you later.
See ya.